So, first thing we're going to talk about is this story about cocaine in the White House. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. This is a thing that the chuds are losing their minds over recently. So, what happened? Well, somebody left a bag of coke in the White House. Long story short, it was found in the foyer on a lower level lobby in the West Wing entrance. The entrance to the executive West Wing, which is apparently a very highly traveled area, and is not an area that the general public usually has access to. Apparently, now there's been a couple of stories about how they've been saying that it's been moved around, like they're saying, oh, they found it here first, or we found it in this library first, or we found it in this little cubby outside of this and that. And that kind of thing usually happens a lot when you have a developing story like this, is that the wrong information gets out. That happens with pretty much every breaking news story. Of course, the right-wing MAGA chud assholes are happy as a clam over this, because that means, first off, not only is it something that makes Joe Biden look bad, but secondly, they get to pick on their favorite target, that being, of course, Hunter Biden. See, because here's the thing, folks, right? Joe Biden has been a politician for a very, very long time, and has supported many, many things, and has a very, very long record, but they kind of weren't expecting him to win, number one, so they didn't really do much in the way of oppo research. And number two, a lot of the things that they would normally oppose him for are things that conservatives are usually good with. For example, Joe Biden said he wanted to cut Social Security back in the 80s, which is very much a Republican talking point. So they can't go around and say, oh, he wanted to cut Social Security, he's bad, because that's exactly what they want to do. You know, he signed this crime bill back in the 90s that disproportionately punished black people. You know, for example, it would give different harsher sentences for things like, I mean, we're talking about cocaine. It would give different harsher sentences for things like crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, stuff like that, right? And that was seen as, you know, nowadays it's seen as like kind of a draconian bill. Back then it was like they all loved it. Well, that's the thing, is that Republicans love shit like that. They want those types of disparities in sentencing. They want to put black people in jail because they're all fucking racist, right? So they can't really complain about that kind of stuff. They can't make ads about that and say you shouldn't vote for him because of this or that, or that he's horrible, blah blah blah. So what do they have to do? They can't really criticize him for any of these behaviors, because they're all policy positions that Republicans like, that the Republican establishment likes, to put it that way, right? So the only thing they have is that they've kind of gone full in on the whole, like, well, Hunter Biden is a scumbag. That angle, trying to basically smear Joe Biden by association, saying, well, look at what a terrible person his son is. Do you really want this guy in the White House? And kind of forgetting that Hunter Biden is not in the White House. He doesn't have a job with the government at all. He doesn't do anything with the government at all. It's a lot different than, say, Donald Trump, who got his daughter and son-in-law to basically run Middle Eastern policy. Right? Do you remember that shit? You know, Jared was in charge of peace in the Middle East. I mean, I guess that's a good reason why nothing ever fucking happened out there. He was also in charge of the pandemic, which is another reason why 700,000 people are dead now, because because Trump put his idiot son-in-law in charge of, mitigating the disaster. Joe Biden didn't do that. Joe Biden didn't take his messed up son and give him large amounts of government power like that. He doesn't even work for the government. He doesn't have a position anywhere in the government at all. He's a private citizen. So that's why this keeps falling flat. So this gives them, of course, another reason to talk shit about Hunter Biden. Kind of drill that in there before the election, which is bullshit. So here's the thing about this, right? It's a bag of coke. Okay. That should surprise nobody. Right? What? I mean, cocaine in Washington, D.C. should surprise no one. Powder cocaine, specifically, is usually a rich person's drug because powder cocaine is extremely expensive. It's a lot different than crack cocaine. Crack cocaine, you could buy crack for $20. It's not expensive at all, and that's why poor people tend to do it. But powder cocaine is a different story. Powder cocaine can cost a lot more than that. I mean, I've never done the shit myself, so I'm blissfully ignorant of the actual pricing structure of cocaine, but to my knowledge, it can cost a lot more than crack cocaine does. And because of that, it tends to be an upper class drug. And that's also why the punishments for it are not as bad as crack cocaine. Let's not forget that angle. So, tends to be white people who do cocaine. Tends to be rich white people. And what do you have in Washington, D.C., especially in the White House? You have rich white people. So it should be no surprise that some White House staffer was doing blow on the job and just happened to drop his baggie or whatever. Maybe he was in a hurry or something. Dropped his baggie in a very highly traversed area. But of course, the political pundits, the MAGA chuds, the talking head conservative douchebags like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire and everybody else are 100% blaming this on Hunter Biden. I mean, why not? Why not? When you have absolutely zero proof, by the way, there is no proof that this belonged to Hunter Biden. It will probably never actually be any proof. I mean, unless they happen to have some video somewhere of a guy snorting cocaine in the middle of the White House, right? On the White House security cameras or something like that. I mean, the thing is, it could be anybody. It could be a White House staffer. It could be a staffer of any given politician who was just at the White House picking something up, running an errand, doing something like that. So it could be any congressman, any House rep staffer, anything like that. Could be any of those people. Could be someone that works for the military going through there. Could be anybody, right? Could be the Secret Service. It is most likely the Secret Service. And yes, there actually is a small chance that it actually was Hunter Biden. Now remember, Hunter Biden doesn't work at the White House. Now they're saying that, okay, this was found on the same floor that you would find the Situation Room, but not near the Situation Room. And it's a highly traversed area, but not open to the public. So if Hunter Biden was there, he does not work for the government. Why would he be in an area that is not open to the public? Like, why would he be back there? If anything, the only places that he would visit would be the president's like living quarters, if anything, right? If he was there and to visit his parents, then they wouldn't let him into top secret areas and stuff like that. Like, no, why would they? He's the president's son. He doesn't have a job in the government. So why would he be in areas where only government employees are supposed to be? Right? That's not what people are saying, of course. Let's take a couple of looks at a few things. Here's a tweet from someone named Amuse. Once again, I don't know who Amuse is because there's a blue check mark, but now anybody can get a blue check mark on Twitter, so it's kind of useless. So Amuse could be a pretty prolific blogger or pundit or right-wing pundit, something like that, or it could just be some fucking rando who paid $8. We would never know. Update. The dime bag of cocaine that was first outside the White House, then inside the White House, then in the library, then in a West Wing work area, then in a high-traffic cell phone drop-off cubby outside the West Wing, is now said to have been found in a very limited access location near the Situation Room. That is incorrect. It is not a very limited access location near the Situation Room. Not at all. It was in a foyer and a lower level lobby in the West Executive Entrance, which is on the same floor as the Situation Room. A lot of the thing, because remember, when you have stories like this, facts get updated as new things come to light very quickly, but it doesn't take long for people to muddy those facts by claiming shit that is either outdated or just not true. Remember, folks, you don't have to lie in a story in order to add your bias to it. See, where it says near the Situation Room, that's the lie. That's where the lie comes in, right? This was found on the same floor as the Situation Room. That makes it sound like that it was like next door to the Situation Room, doesn't it? That makes it sound like the important people inside of the Situation Room, somebody dropped their cocaine, like whether it was the president himself or the Joint Chiefs of Staff or something like that, or the Secretary of Defense or something. One of those guys had a bag of coke and they dropped it right outside the Situation Room. When in real life, that's not what happened. In real life, this was just on the same floor as the Situation Room. See how it is? See how you don't have to create elaborate lies in order to hoodwink people. You just have to point people in the general direction and just put little tiny half-truths in there. That's all it fucking takes, right? This is the Daily Wire's really stupid fucking brain-dead take on this. Don't expect the White House to go sniffing around the cocaine investigation. We won't read this entire thing, but I do want to read a little bit because it is stupid and ridiculous and people believe this shit. Of course, they have to use a picture of Joe Biden blowing his nose. Yeah, okay. Do you really think, folks, that an 82-year-old man is snorting coke in the fucking White House? Do you really think? I mean, if that was the case, if Joe Biden was snorting coke in the White House, he'd be a lot more energetic, don't you think? I mean, also, he'd probably fucking drop dead. I mean, he's 82 for fuck's sake. But still, don't you think they wouldn't be calling him Sleepy Joe if he was doing cocaine? They'd be calling him fucking, I don't know, coked out Joe or something. Crackhead Joe. Crackhead Joe. Watch, if somebody steals that from me, I coin that term. If they start calling him Crackhead Joe, I deserve the credit for that. Let's read a little bit of this. Somehow, it snowed at the Biden White House in July, despite climate change occurring. Got to throw in a little bit of some dog whistles there, folks. We will talk about climate change later in the stream here. Alleged climate change. Yes, climate change is fucking occurring. Moving on. And the Biden administration has no interest in figuring out how it happened. In fact, on Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said President Joe Biden and his team won't be sniffing around the investigation into the bag of cocaine found at the People's House this past weekend. On Friday, June 30th, prolific artist and renowned drug addict Hunter Biden was in the White House. Was he? I don't know. I guess he was. On Sunday, the Secret Service found a bag of cocaine reportedly in a well-trafficked area. That is circumstantial evidence to be sure, but those two clues provide a pretty good start as to who is to blame for the fiasco. Given that this incident occurred at the White House and in the West Wing, one would imagine that the president would order his team to help Secret Service find the culprit. You see, folks, see how that is? It's like they have to say that's circumstantial evidence because it is. It is circumstantial evidence. There was zero evidence that this belonged to Hunter Biden. I'm assuming the police have it, and they're dusting it for fucking, fingerprints and shit, right? So I'm assuming it'll come out. If it actually did belong to Hunter Biden, it'll come out, won't it? But see what it says? It was in a reportedly well-trafficked area. Yeah, a well-trafficked area that was off limits to the public. That Hunter Biden, being part of the public and not the government, would have no access to. Normal people can't just walk into the White House on any floor that they want. They go on tours and shit. And you can't go into this area where, like, the fucking Situation Room is, for fuck's sake. So, what would Hunter Biden be doing there? Doesn't make any sense. Here we go. And then this other thing, okay, one would imagine that the president would order his team to help the Secret Service find the culprit, except that isn't happening. Jean-Pierre told press that nobody will be lining up to help out anytime soon. Could you just tell us how the White House is assisting in this investigation, blah, blah, blah. Quote from the communications person. Look, we're not assisting in anything. This is under the Secret Service purview. This is their kind of guidance and guidelines, their world. So we're going to let them do their job. We are not involved in this. What does this basically mean, right? In fact, they have a video of it right here. Why don't we just watch the video of the question here?
Can you just tell us how the White House is assisting the Secret Service with this investigation? Have you made any White House officials available for interviews with law enforcement, for example?
Well, look, we're not assisting in anything. This is under the Secret Service purview. This is their kind of guidance and guideline, their world, and so we're going to let them do their job. We are not involved in this. This is something that the Secret Service handles. It's under their protocol, and they are going to investigate and get to the bottom of what happened this weekend, and we appreciate that.
And you noted that.
Now, I want to point one thing out to you guys before we move on. You see this quote here? See how they left all of the sort of stutters and the uhs and ahs and things in it. See how they added all that shit in this quote? They did that on purpose to make her look stupid. That's what they did. Say, when you write something like this, I notice that people do this a lot with Donald Trump too. Like when Donald Trump talks, they'll put it there verbatim. They won't just take a quote out of it. They'll quote him verbatim because it makes him sound like an idiot. And that's what they do with this. I mean, of course, Donald Trump is a fucking idiot. But that's what they're doing here. They put all of the uhs and ahs and, and they're going to investigate and get to the bottom, and all that shit. Because when you read it, it makes it sound like, well, God, this person's an idiot. And then you watch the video and you listen to her talk, and it's like, oh, she's just a normal person, right? So that's the first thing. I wanted to add that in there. Just another way of slipping in bias, a little subconscious bias here. I mean, I know it's the Daily Wire, but still. Secondly, I mean, that's a perfectly appropriate response. The White House is not a police investigative body. They said, we're going to leave this to the Secret Service. The Secret Service actually is a policing body. They actually do police actions. Secret Service, for example, will do things like they track down counterfeiters and stuff like that. So they actually do have some investigative purpose and law enforcement purpose beyond just protecting politicians. And this is their thing. And so what are they saying? They're saying that the White House is not going to interfere in this investigation, as they shouldn't, as they should not. They should not interfere in the investigation. But just the fact that it's just putting it there just to spin this, to make it look like, oh, it's some kind of big-ass cover-up. It's not a fucking cover-up. And here's the thing. If it actually did turn out to be Hunter Biden's cocaine, what do you think will happen? He will go to jail. Part of his plea deal for the weapons charge is that he has to remain clean for 2 years. And if he gets caught doing drugs, then the weapons charge kicks in, and then he goes to prison. So that's what'll happen. And will anybody interfere with that? Will the White House interfere with that? No, they won't. We talked about the Hunter Biden charge thing in a previous video. Like I said before, the President Biden can just... Let's turn this fucking shit off here. Fuck these people. The President Biden can just pardon Hunter anytime he feels like. So anytime he feels like the heat is too much, anytime he feels like, oh, well, my son's going to jail for fucking 10 years or something, he could just pardon him and get him off scot-free and nobody can do shit about it. Fact is, he hasn't done that yet. Because, first off, it'll make him look bad. That's the reason why he hasn't done it. Right? But secondly, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because it would make him look bad and he's thinking that might hurt me politically. Maybe it's because he actually thinks his son should be held accountable. Who knows? Who knows what the actual reason is? I mean, we could speculate all we want, right? That doesn't change the facts. It doesn't change the fact that this is what's actually fucking happening, is that he's not just pardoning his son and letting him get off scot-free with all this shit. Anyway, one more take on this stupid shit here. This is a guy named Greg Gutfield on... Greg Gutfield, who is sort of a wannabe kind of... he has like sort of a wannabe daily show. Like, he's like an imitation right-wing Trevor Noah, and is just the most unfunny person like ever. Right. We're going to listen to some of this, but first, before we do this, we're going to reduce the size of this thing down really low so that I don't get copyright struck. Gutfield, White House knows exactly where cocaine came from. And let's see. First, we got to skip ahead a little bit because we have introducing a bunch of morons here. And skip ahead to the cocaine mystery, which is right about here. Greg's Leftovers. This is what passes for, comedy on the right wing nowadays.
Leftovers, where I read the jokes we didn't use this week. And as always, it's my first time reading them. So if they suck after the show, we will set fire to Brian Kilmeade's backpack. While he's in it. First off.
While he's in it. You notice how nobody laughed at that? Let's rewind that just a little bit.
While he's in it. First.
No laughs. That's funnier than any... Okay, anyway. The fact that just nobody laughs at any of this shit. I don't like. Watch how many times, as we watch this, watch how many times he bombs. And how, you get these really forced chuckles from the audience. Anyway, continuing.
First off, a bag of cocaine was discovered in the White House this week. No one knows the source of the mystery bag, but Hunter Biden promised to get to the bottom of it.
Ha ha ha.
Cokehead. Officials say it was found in a heavily traveled area.
Did you get that? Right at the end, he's like, ha! Cokehead. It's like... I mean, they try so hard. They try so hard. I don't know. Let's continue. Let's continue, and I'll talk at the end.
Mostly the area between Hunter's nose and upper lip. After the drug cachet was described as a small amount, Hunter replied, "Well, that rules me out." I could do these all night. Probably will. White House.
Embarrassingly bad. Embarrassingly bad. It kind of reminds me of Jeb Bush when he's like, "Please clap." Like, this guy cracks a joke and nobody laughs, and then he goes, "Ha!" And then he calls him "Ha! Crackhead." No one laughs. Embarrassing. This exemplifies exactly how poor this particular brand of attack is. Sometimes you actually come up with an angle that really works. Donald Trump is really good at this. He would just come up with a pet name for everybody. Lion Ted, Little Marco, stuff like that. And he would just say it over and over and over because that lands and it works well, Marco Rubio is kind of not just a small person, but just a lightweight in general when it comes to politics. He's he's a nobody. Nobody cares about him, right? Ted Cruz is a liar. Jeb Bush is low energy. He's just boring. All of that shit lands, and it lands pretty well. I mean, even when he was talking about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a crook. She is a crook. I mean, not in the way that they were describing. Not for any of the shit they accused her of. But she is a crook, paid for play and stuff with the Clinton Foundation, all that shit. That actually fucking happened. Not for the shit that they were saying. Oh, they were blaming her for things like Benghazi and stuff. There's no fucking basis in reality for that. But she definitely was a crook in other ways. This one just isn't landing. It's not landing because nobody cares. Oh, yeah, Joe Biden's son is a drug addict. Like, so what? If it was him running for fucking office himself, then yeah, okay. But it just doesn't, it's just not funny. It's like you're picking on somebody with like a problem. You know what I mean? It's like when you punch down, like when you're a comedian and you punch down, that's what makes it wrong. Like you can make, all right, here's the thing, folks, right? I am a firm believer that you can make fun of anything. You can make, just kind of like George Carlin. I actually sort of believe that. You can make fun of anybody for anything. You can make fun of somebody for the way they look. You can make fun of somebody for their weight. You can make fun of somebody for whatever fucking reason. The fact that they're a drug addict. You can make fun of them for that. It's the way in which you do it. It's whether you punch up or you punch down. When you punch up, it's cool. You know why? Because the person you're attacking is privileged and can handle it. And that's why when you make fun of George W. Bush for being a cokehead, because, don't forget, George W. Bush snorted coke too. It doesn't hit as well. It's like, oh, well, here's a multimillionaire, multimillionaire who failed his way into becoming the most powerful man on earth. Doesn't hit so bad. But then when you make fun of Hunter Biden, yeah, he's rich too, but he's also got psychological problems. He's obviously got problems, depression and shit like that. Went on some kind of like, became a drug addict like out of sorrow after his brother was killed. Kind of like punching down. It's sort of like, you know what I mean? It doesn't land as well because it's cruel. I think there's a few more really bad jokes that land horribly here. Let's continue.
Security says they'll probably never know where the goat came from because they stopped looking. Not so much funny as it is kind of a sad statement of affairs. Thank you, Dave.
How sad is that? Like, no one's laughing.
I got a chuckle from the floor director.
I like how him making fun of his joke just bombing is funnier than, like, the actual joke that he put out. I don't know. Pathetic.
Because he's a miserable man. The administration claims that in that particular location, it would be easy for anyone to abandon an item. Security also reported finding a grandchild. You got it? Bag of coke here, a gun there, a baby there. It's all the same to the Bidens. Harvard announced its most
It's pathetic. This is why they'll never succeed. Let's turn this pathetic. This shit is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Let's get rid of this shit. Fox News a little while ago tried to do sort of a daily show kind of thing and bombed horribly. And it looks like they're kind of trying to do the same thing here. They're trying to make this guy to be like the conservative Trevor Noah. And it's just the most unfunny shit that's ever in my entire life. Like, it's not funny. You know what it is? It's like, they're like dad jokes. Or even worse, it's almost sort of like when your boss cracks a joke and it'll be stupid and but you have to laugh anyway because it's your boss, and if you don't laugh at your boss's jokes, you get fired. That's what it's like. It's like you're listening to this shit like, courtesy laugh, courtesy chuckle, haha. Oh boy, he called him a crackhead. Oh, that was funny. It's pathetic. It's absolutely fucking pathetic. When they say the right can't meme, I think that's what they're talking about. It's like when they try to be funny, it just makes them look incredibly sad. I don't know. So I wanted to share that with you guys, because if I have to suffer through shit like this, so do you. And I don't know. But really, folks, when it comes down to it, do you really give a shit? Getting back to the subject. Let's even say someone in the government actually that cocaine did belong to them. Do you actually care? Do you give a fuck? I don't care. Me personally. I personally think everybody should be allowed to do cocaine if you want to. I mean, I don't do it myself, But I'm not going to judge somebody that because they do cocaine. It's like, who cares? Someone that I don't know doing drugs in a place where I don't live, where it doesn't affect me personally at all, why should I care about that? I mean, yeah, maybe you don't want the president doing drugs, but he's obviously not. I mean, like I said, Biden is fucking an old man. He's not doing cocaine. Fuck, I don't even think he could handle it. Doesn't Joe Biden go to sleep at like 4 p.m. or something like that? Like, so no, it's not. It doesn't belong to the fucking president. But let's say in the off chance, I mean, there is a small chance, a very small chance that, yeah, maybe this did belong to him. Maybe, that maybe he did come to visit. Maybe he did walk through that hallway and maybe it fell out his pocket or something. Do you care? Do you care? If you do, why do you care? And why does it matter? I've yet to hear from any conservative out there why it fucking matters at all to anyone. For what reason should anybody give a shit that Hunter Biden is a drug addict? What reason? Why should I give a fuck about that? Why should that change my opinion on Joe Biden and his job as president, which by all objective measures is really not half bad? I would say he's a better president than Obama has been. That's for sure. And Obama was probably, up until that point, the best president in my lifetime. Since my lifetime starts with, Jimmy Carter. So I would say that he was the best president in my lifetime. Right. Not saying the best president ever, but he was since I was alive. So I'm going to go out and straight out say it. Joe Biden so far is the best president in my lifetime. He's accomplished more things like for the environment and for the economy and all that other shit. Now, am I saying he's perfect? Is he the best president ever? No, obviously not. There is a long way to go for him to get that title, but way better than fucking Ronald Reagan, way better than George W. fucking Bush, 10 times better than fucking Donald fucking Trump. I mean, let's just be real here. Look at the presidents over the last 50 years, since 1975. Look at all the presidents people that have been president since 1975. Who was the best one? Bill Clinton? Bush the first? Like, Obama? No, I would say so far, fucking Joe Biden. Of course, he could still fuck up. He could still get us into World War III. He can still completely tank the economy. He could still do all kinds of shit to fucking, take that mantle away. But not so fucking bad. Now, that also means, if you compare them all, it's like, goddamn, this is the best we fucking got. I mean, seriously. Right? So, I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of, crazy fucking Joe Biden stan or anything. I'm just trying to look at the shit objectively. I mean, we can do better. Put it that way. We could do better. Way, way better than Joe Biden. Just looking at what we have to work with. He's probably the best out of the lot. I mean, why should a bag of Coke, why should that change my opinion that his son does Coke? His son smokes crack. Why should that change my opinion to him? It doesn't make any sense. Please, somebody explain to me why. Why his son being a drug addict should make me not like Joe Biden. Doesn't make any sense to me, folks. Hello, folks. If you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.